And now, I would like to introduce you to Caitlin Yeager. She is a graduate of Truman State University, where she received her BA in history. She grew up in St. Louis and currently lives there with her husband and 3 cats and a dog. So, she serves as Director of Heritage Programs for the Missouri Humanities Council, where she oversees the programming related to German, African American, rural, Civil War, Native American heritage in our state. She is here to tell us today about a program that is entitled Digitizing Missouri's German Heritage, and it aims to document stories of publicly held artifacts, documents, and photos related to German heritage of Missouri. And I can't tell you a whole lot about it, so that's why I'm going to turn this over to Caitlin and have her tell us about what she's doing and how we can become a part of that program.
The really good work you guys are doing. This is really exciting to hear about. I mean, that World War I book looks amazing.
Close to your mouth, Caitlin. So
Okay.
Okay.
Like Phyllis said, my name is Caitlin Yeager. I'm the Director of Heritage Programs for the Missouri Humanities Council. Has anybody heard of the Missouri Humanities Council? Except for Cindy. Cindy works very closely with us for our German Heritage Program. So for those of you who might not know much about Missouri Humanities Council, we are a nonprofit organization. We have 3 offices throughout the state. One is in St. Louis, one is in Kansas City, and one's in Springfield, which is our newest office. And we work on 5 different programs. That's Grants Program. We're a granting agency, so always look to us if you're thinking about a program or a project that might need some grant funding. Veterans programs, education programs, family programs, and then what I do, which is the heritage programs, which is a lot of fun for me. So what I'll start off with, before I get into the digitization, digitization is a really hard word for me to say, so if I stumble, I apologize. Before I get much into that, I'm going to tell you kind of a little bit more background about the program that inspired the digitization program, and that is our German Heritage Corridor. Which the German Heritage Corridor, we are in it. It is a legislatively designated area in the kind of mid-Missouri. It starts in St. Louis City and it follows the Missouri River for 16 counties. So basically, if you look at a map of Missouri with the counties, start in St. Louis City and then count 1 county above and 1 county below, all the way up to Lafayette and Saline counties. That's the German Heritage Corridor. Like I said, it has been legislatively designated. It was signed into law in 2016 by Governor Nixon, which is very, very helpful when it comes to legitimizing ourselves, is knowing that this is an officially designated heritage area. A lot of people ask, just before other people start asking, why this area and why aren't we in other areas of Missouri? Obviously, there are many other heavily German areas in this state. It is our goal to focus on this very concentrated area of German settlement for the next several years, to see the kind of response we get, to see what kind of programs are successful, and then to expand eventually to be statewide. We actually already have our sights set on another area next, which will be Perry County, which, as you probably know, is also a very German area. But we get questions about Freistadt, we get questions about Holkamp, areas of Missouri that are very German but are outside the corridor. We haven't forgotten about them. They are on our list. We're just taking it kind of one area at a time. So why did we choose German heritage? I don't need to tell you all that German heritage is very prevalent in the state of Missouri. It's the state's #1 ethnicity. Actually, there's a map that was done by the Census Bureau a few years back. I think it was the 2010 census, and it marks, it colors in which counties in Missouri are majority German, and there's only a couple that aren't. So it's quite striking. But something else, the fact that it's a majority German state is an obvious choice as to why we chose to celebrate Missouri's German heritage, but also because it's a majority German state, but there's not a lot that's done with that heritage. Places like Herman do it really well. Places like Washington, you get down to Perry County, and they're really adamant about showcasing their heritage. But a lot of other areas either don't have the resources, or just over time have lost the connection to their German heritage. So it's our goal to spread that message and to get in to help do programming, and bring awareness to other people as well as to the German heritage of our state, because I get to a lot of people and talk to them about how German Missouri is. A lot of people don't realize, because they either live in an area that doesn't commemorate or doesn't acknowledge it, or it's just not something that's prevalent. So what kind of got us started with the German Heritage Corridor? It started about 4 years ago. And our first step was to create partnerships and teams to help us create what's called an interpretive plan, which I'm happy to say is complete. Cindy is on our project team for the German Heritage Corridor. She was integral in helping us get that interpretive plan done. The final plan is a roughly 40-page long document that gives background to the history we're trying to preserve. And also, a good analogy is to compare it to a blueprint. It tells us what to do and how to do it. It lines up kind of the stages and breaks it down into different chunks of time. So we have programs that we're going to focus on for the next 1 to 3 years, and then we get into the next phase, which is the next 4 to 6 years, and that's 7 to 10. So it basically lays out the next 10 years of ideas and how to do that. So that just got completed a couple months ago. And it's like I said, going to be our guiding force as we implement some pilot programming. I'm extremely excited that we're finally into the pilot programming phase. I've been with the Humanities Council for 2 years now, so I've been working on this for 2 years, and to know that I finally get out into the corridor and do some programming is really, really exciting. The plan itself over the next 10 plus years includes 4 major components. So there's public programming. So things like the event that I'm going to talk to you about later, digitizing events, speaking engagements, exhibits, etc. Digital public history, we're working on an ebook type format to where we can download oral histories and stories and memories, and we can put in pictures of artifacts and make it interactive, and put in story mapping and lots of really fun stuff to be able to do as we are in a very much digital age. Traveling and permanent exhibits, pretty self-explanatory. We want to have at least a few permanent exhibits at major sites throughout the corridor, but also have a traveling exhibit that can go from place to place, and we can share that throughout the state. And then we have site interpretation. So site interpretation being, an example is Luxenhouse Farms in Marthasville, Missouri. We are working with the owner to create a plan for that site to figure out how to utilize it to its fullest potential, rather than just the 1 weekend a year that they do a German festival. They do Deutsch Country Days every year. Unfortunately, they are no longer to be doing Deutsch Country Days, which gives us an even bigger opportunity to get in there and figure out how to utilize that site, because there's way too much potential there to let it go to waste. So we're hoping to interpret the site, but also use it for more public programming. And as we continue into 2018, now that we have the plan, it was time to establish some priorities. So public outreach, I do a lot of events like this where someone hears down the grapevine that we have a German Heritage program and wants to know what that is. So I come out to a lot of groups like you guys and tell them, and I love doing it. I love people having interest and coming to me and saying they want to learn more. I get a lot of follow-up about that. We've started collecting oral histories of stories and memories of people who remember growing up when German culture was a lot more prevalent. And also the transition, which was very prevalent during World War II, of Germanness not exactly being very widely accepted when it was out in public, of it kind of shifting from being okay to be openly German to keeping it to the confines of the home. We get a lot of stories about people remembering when you weren't allowed to speak German anymore outside of the home, or remembering when 1 year they were taught German in school and the next year it was gone. So we get a lot of memories like that. So we're starting to establish meetings with people to start documenting those oral histories so we can save those stories before they're gone. We're also, in addition to the event that I'll get to in just a few minutes, we are starting the process of using an app called Guide-A-Go, and Cindy's also helping us out with this one. I'm very excited about this. I think it's got so much potential. So Guide-A-Go is an app that you can download on a smartphone. It's free to download, and the tours are free to take. And you basically create a tour, and it's location-based. So it uses Google Maps to establish your location and find tours for you to take, and the tours are guided through you on your phone. And it can take you from place to place, guide you to how to get there, And then on the app itself, it has pictures, you can put in video, you can put in audio, as well as a story about the place if you want to read, or you can have it recorded and listen to it. So it guides you along this tour, and it's totally free. We're actually in the process of creating a tour in Herman to pilot starting during Oktoberfest this year. So if that's successful, then we will create more tours throughout the corridor and then use them for other heritage programs that the Missouri Humanity Council does. So really excited about that. I try and talk about that anytime I can, especially when I'm in more rural areas, because it's free. And I just had a cultural heritage workshop, which is something that we also do at the Humanities Council. I had one in a town called Brunswick up in Sheridan County, town of 800, and a question I got quite frequently was, how do we do programming? How do we increase tourism? How do we get people out to explore when we don't have any money, when we don't have programming, when we don't have museums? And the first thing I said was, look up Guide-to-Go. It's, you can get better features if you do a paid subscription, but you can do everything except basically like the analytic stuff with just the free version. Free to do, free to create, and free to download. There's absolutely no cost other than your time. So I highly recommend if you guys are interested looking into that. So the digitization program came out of a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. We applied in June 2017, and it was accepted and awarded in December of 2017. So a little bit about what the grant was asking for, just because this kind of gives you a little bit of context as to why I chose to do something like this, other than the fact that we have a German heritage program. So this is a quote from the grant guidelines. America's cultural heritage is preserved not only in libraries, museums, archives, and other community organizations, but also in all of our homes, family histories, and life stories. The Common Heritage Program aims to capture this vitally important part of our country's heritage and preserve it for future generations. Common Heritage will support both the digitization of cultural heritage materials and the organization of outreach through community events that explore and interpret these materials as a window on the community's history and culture. So this grant caught my attention in early 2017, and I saw it and I read it, and it was a bit of a no-brainer. It fit so perfectly with what we were trying to do with the German Heritage Corridor. So it was an obvious focus for us. We were already knee-deep in developing the interpretive plan for a German Heritage program. The idea of doing some sort of public event like this was already being discussed. And I really liked that its goal felt a little bit unique. It was more interested in these hidden stories, I like to say. The stories that are on our bookshelves or in our basements or in a display case in our homes. It's not about what's in a museum or what's in a library. I'm so excited to see the history that is not put on display, that people cherish and that people are choosing to share with the public by saying, hey, this is something that's really special to me and my family. I want to digitize it so that if anything should happen to it, if anything should happen to me, that it's there for future generations or for other people to learn from. I was very fortunate to get the project fully funded, and now that I've done a lot of the planning and a lot of the logistical steps of the event, I knew it was time for the most important component, which was bringing it to the attention of the people I'm doing this for, which is you guys. Like Phyllis said, this project seeks to digitize publicly held artifacts, documents, photographs, etc., related to Missouri's German heritage. So think family heirlooms, something that's been passed down or something that you found and you thought was cool and you plan to pass down. It doesn't have to be something that your great-great-great-grandfather continued to pass down through generations. If it's something that you found or you came upon or came into your possession that's special to you, special to your family, that's what we're interested in. So the objective of this digitization event is threefold. To increase our understanding of the effects of German immigration and acculturation in the region, to allow for the public to share their stories with each other, and to preserve cultural heritage for future generations. This is especially important for objects that are fragile, and that just doesn't mean breakable. It means paper documents, it means photographs, things that can disintegrate or become destroyed over time. The digitization of these objects allows them to be shared now and shared with multiple generations at the same time. So rather than one person hanging on to one photograph, if it's digitized, you can share it now and make sure that it's preserved for future generations. The program will be held on June 23rd this year from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and we're going to have it at the Herman United Methodist Church in their, not cafeteria, what do you, like meeting room, Cindy?
Yeah.
Meeting room?
Yeah.
Yeah. The registration is required. So unfortunately, this is not the kind of event where I can just say, come one, come all, don't bother, registering. It can't really be a free-for-all. I have to have some sort of order, just with the nature of the event. So there is a link. I'll hand out a flyer at the end here. There's a link to register. It's basically the German Heritage page of our website. So it basically is just your basic information, your name, your contact info. And then I'm allowing people to bring up to 3 items. So you can list those items out. The only reason we need these listed out is to just have some sort of idea of what kinds of items we have coming that day. So, I mean, some examples, I've had some people sign up already. Some examples, we have a lot of people bringing photographs, journals. I think Lois is bringing some wooden shoes, if I remember correctly. I have people bringing some casks that they use to make champagne. A lot of really cool things like that. So, the sky's the limit. But we just need to know a little bit about what's coming our way so that if there's anything kind of obscure or we know that we're getting a lot of one type of item, I can plan a little bit better. So like I said, there's space on the registration site to list them, anything we might need to know about them. If something is particularly fragile, that's something good to know. I am making sure that this grant covers supplies to correctly handle artifacts and even clean them. So that, and sorry, sidebar to that, another thing that we'll be able to do at this event is if you're not sure what to do to make sure that this, photograph or this piece, is perpetuated, I actually will be providing some preservation materials and storage materials. So think like acid-free paper and folders, tissue paper. I have stuff to be able to clean the objects so that, not only can they look their best when they're being scanned or photographed, but that you guys, get a little bit of a demonstration as to how best care for these items. One thing we often find when people are bringing personal objects in, they don't view it as this is an artifact that needs to be handled with gloves on and, preserved like a museum. To them, it's something in their house, and that's okay. That's what we all do. But, if you want it preserved or you want it to last longer, we can give you at least a little bit of information as to how best care for that or how to best store it when it's not out in the open. So, like I said, this is going to be in Herman. Herman was an easy choice for us. We tend to kind of gravitate towards Herman when we're talking about some public programming because they have such a great audience already, so it lets us know, if someone likes it in Herman, that means that we can probably do a pretty good job somewhere else too. It's also a town that does an excellent job of showcasing their German heritage, and I knew that they'd have the right contacts and the right audience of people to help bring in some of these items. So a little bit about what the event will be like. I'll provide some forms for people to fill out if they choose to digitize some objects, general contact information, a release form because we are photographing these items and we will be keeping a file of the digitized objects in our possession, as well as giving you the files, of course. An object information form, and just tell us a little bit about it if you know the date, if you know where it came from, kind of its history, if it belonged to your great-great-grandfather, did it just get passed down pretty directly? Does it have kind of a funky history? Just the important things you would like to tell us about that. And at the end of the event, the obvious program evaluation, letting us know how the event went, what we can do better, especially since I would like to do these events if they're successful throughout the state. So as we talk about what that day is going to look like, there's kind of 2 paths that you can take depending on what kind of items you have. So all objects will first go to what I'm going to call a conservation station to make sure they're A, in good enough condition for scanning or photographing or general handling, and B, to clean up a little bit if need be, and C, to give a brief demonstration on the best practices for storage and maintenance. So what I'm calling 3D objects, so something that's not paper or a photograph or a journal or something like that, will be directed to a photography booth where they'll get high-resolution photos taken of them, and then paper objects like photographs and documents and all that will be directed to a computer and scanner station to get them scanned into high-resolution scans. After digitization, the files will be given back to you, and they will be directed to our oral historian. who will then ask a few questions about your item and record your story or your memories about it. Just a brief few minutes, asking a couple questions about why that item is important to you. And this is important to us because the information you might be giving us on the piece of paper, the date, who it belonged to, where it came from, that's all well and good, but we want to know why you're bringing this to us in the first place. Why did it last for generations? Why is it special? So we want to be able to record those stories and have those for our records and for future programming as well. So depending on how much information you give us during that day, we may contact you again after the event to get more detail. I'm using a museum cataloging service. You might have heard of it. It's called Past Perfect. It's just a very kind of user-friendly catalog on a computer of objects. And I'm going to be actually putting these items into Past Perfect. I'm not a museum. I'm not keeping them in my collection, but I would like to keep a catalog of the items that we're getting during these events. It's nice because while obviously we're doing this for you, it actually helps us out a little bit too, because as we start to develop programming, especially exhibits, those kind of permanent exhibits that I talked about, I'd like to go back to see, okay, I remember somebody had a really cool photograph or a really cool letter at one of my digitization events. I'd love to showcase that in an exhibit or during some sort of program or event. So that way, Past Perfect has all that information about that item. It has your contact information, and I can go back and say, would you put that on loan for us for X amount of time? Or even just the digital file, would you put that on loan and let us showcase it during a program or an exhibit? So you guys are actually helping us with our programming as well by bringing in your items and letting us share their story too. Ideally, these items will be included in that kind of ebook I was talking about earlier when I was talking about our digital component. And it'll kind of, well, that's where we'll put your little oral history story on there, your photographs, and then all the information about that. I'm really excited to be doing this, and I've talked about this event a couple times. This is my first kind of really, important marketing push for it. The best part, aside from hearing your guys' stories and preserving this heritage, is that I'll be able to use this pilot program that I'm doing in Herman on the 23rd, learn from that, and then repeat it throughout the state. So it's in our interpretive plan to take this kind of event and basically bring it on the road to do the exact same thing in all other areas. And why this is exciting for me is because each settlement, each family, each person has a different story, but at the same time, this program focuses and forces us to recognize our commonalities as well. And that's the goal of the NEH's Common Heritage Grant and of our German Heritage Program, is to find that common heritage and have it bond us. So that's my spiel. And I would love to take some questions because I'm sure we have some. Questions, if you think you have an item that might, you might want to bring in, you want to ask me about it, go right ahead. Any questions about the Heritage Program or MHC? Yeah.
You said that the program is, what, 2 to 4, what'd you say the time?
10 to 4.
10 to 4. So are you limiting the number of people? When you get to a certain number registered, we're done, or
yes. Well, so on that, basically when you go to register, you can sign up for a time slot. And I don't know exactly how long each person will take. It's going to change from person to person. So basically you're signing up for like a 1-hour time slot. You won't be there for an hour, but we'll take a certain amount of people an hour. And I think I'm cutting it off at like 5 to 7 per hour. So I think I can get between like 30 and 50 people. I don't think that's overreaching, and I don't think that's not enough. I think we'll probably be somewhere in there. But if it gets to be kind of close to the event and we're filling up, I do have the option to do that hall another half day on Sunday. So I'm prepared to do that if necessary and to extend it to the next day and take more people. So.
Which is why it's a pilot, because we don't know.
Yeah, I know. I remember telling Cindy, I'm like, I have no idea how many people to expect.
And we don't either. And
Yeah.
It's like one of our meetings. You don't
Mhm.
know, right? And
Yeah.
conversely,
sorry.
like Antiques Roadshow, where there's 1,000
Yeah.
people lined up. And you
Yeah.
wanna have-
I cannot tell you how much your items are worth. Sorry, I'm not qualified to do that.
So you will be getting back in contact with us as far as our things go on?
Yeah, so you should be receiving. Did you get a confirmation email? I know that were you having trouble with the website?
Yes, but I think I got the
Okay.
confirmation somewhere out there, but I don't recall that there was a specific time.
Okay. Let me look, but one thing I will do is I'll make sure, you know, in the weeks coming up to the event that I reach out to. It's not so many people that I can't handle reaching out. I tend to send reminder emails before programs, especially if things have come up since I put out a reservation. Like I know that I want, you know, to make sure that people know where to go and the parking situation and the accessibility situation and all that. So you'll hear, if you register, you will hear from me within, you know, a couple weeks of the event. Yeah.
If I get into this, I have my great-grandfather's discharge from the German Army, and he settled in this area. As a matter of fact, he's buried about 2 miles from here. If you can digitize his discharge document, would it be helpful to have his picture of his burial site also?
I think Lois actually asked that exact question, is if you have somebody's object, if you have a picture, that would be great. I think something that I told her would be really great is, when I mentioned Past Perfect, and you can actually put into Past Perfect multiple images for an object. So if you have a discharge paper, and that was the main focus of that entry on Past Perfect, I could also include a picture of the person that was discharged. Or I can create a whole new file for him as a person, put some bio information, and then link the two. So it gives you a lot of options. But yes, if you have a photograph of the owner of the item, that would be great. I think that'd be a really cool
Or the
feature.
marker, if you were at a cemetery.
Yeah, or a picture of the grave marker, that's cool too. Yeah.
Caitlin, I have a couple questions
Sure.
on a couple items. Are you going to screen some items with your emailing back and forth now to let people know you don't want those things? Or let's say like a Civil War musket. Would that be accepted?
How big is it?
A musket. It's
Yeah.
It's big and heavy.
I mean, we could probably make that work. My only thing would be how to photograph it best, because that's obviously not something I can scan. And the photo booth is kind of yay big. But, I mean, it might be something we can figure out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we had a table and I could put like, yeah, a white sheet down, and we might be able to get up on a chair and, yeah, I think that's something you could do. As far as like screening, I mean, I would say if you think like a musket, you know, might be too big, might be, you know, too fragile, you can always give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to go over it with you and see if that's something. I mean, I'm not going to say we wouldn't be interested in anything. We're interested in anything that you guys have to share. As long as the thing is, as long as it's related somehow to a German family or the German heritage of Missouri. Unfortunately, I have to be selective about that because that's the purpose of the program. So I'd say as long as it's related somehow to that and you can tell us some sort of story about it, we'll probably take it. But if it's something that's obscenely huge or awkward, do give me a call just so I can make sure that we can do something with it that day. So, yeah.
Like a lady's wedding dress and a man's suit, would that be too big for them?
No, because I think, again, if we did a table with a white sheet or a piece of white rollout paper or something, it might be something to handle. I might have to do some test shots to see if I can... Yeah, exactly. And that's true. That's true. So maybe do bring all your crazy big stuff and I'll see if I can handle it. Yeah, the only thing would be trying to make sure that we get the whole piece in one photograph. And depending on how fragile it is, we might be able to even hang it up on something on a backdrop. But if it's too fragile to be hung up, I wouldn't want to do that. But I mean, sure, why not? We can try. All we can do is try. And if need be, we can take pictures in pieces. So, and piece it back together. Any other questions I can answer?
Anybody have more questions for Caitlin?
I will hand out a couple pieces of paper to you guys. One is just I'm gonna put this down now. One is just the flyer for the event. Has all the information, as well as the registration link. The other is just a general one-sheet write-up about the German Heritage Program. I don't have business cards because I don't have that many left, and we're in the process of ordering new ones. But all of my contact information is on this sheet, and then my email address is on this sheet. So, start one
Caitlin
here.
is amazingly organized. We're very lucky to have her on the German Heritage Corridor.
Thanks,
So, no, I've worked with you the last 2 years, and we're very fortunate. So, we were just excited to have some pilot programs here in Gascony County.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's so much here. So
Right.
It made sense to do so.
And I also have information information. If any of you are going to my fest at Herman, I unfortunately won't be there. My sister's getting married. Good excuse, I guess. So I have Cindy, she's going to take one of our banners to the German Heritage Corridor, and she'll have these flyers too. Take multiple if you need to, if you know that people want to share them.
If you've got a place to
Yeah.
post them.
And please, if you think that you have an outlet that might be able to push out more information about the digitization events, let me know. I kind of started a little bit of marketing outreach a couple months ago, just with some preliminary information, like, hey, we have a venue and a date, save the date. But now that we're a little over a month out, I'm going to be really trying hard to get in the newspapers and do some press releases and make sure that everyone's got this information. So we have about 6 people signed up now. I'm not discouraged by that, but I'd like to see more. But again, I haven't been out doing talks like this as frequently for this event. But now that we're closer, I'll be working a lot harder on that. So, but yeah, please reach out to me if you have any questions, especially about the items or about the event. Please direct people to me if they have questions about it. I'd be happy to talk to people and explain a little bit more about it if people have questions. So, and thank you for having me.
Let's give Caitlin a hand.